Welcome back to the PT Graduate Podcast. My guest today is Mr. Arron Callaghan. Welcome, Arron. Good to meet you, and welcome along.
Thanks, Richard. It's great to have this opportunity to have a bit of a chat and a catch up. I'm looking
Yeah,
forward
yeah,
to it.
totally. And so Arron Callaghan Coaching is your business, and obviously you're in the coaching space. But tell us a bit about that, and maybe we can then kind of go back to the beginning and find how you got to that point.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. So basically, a very quick overview. My primary focus actually for the last maybe sort of four or 5 years has been working with the Otago Rugby Union. So a lot of my focus there has actually been in sort of coach development, so coaching coaches.
Ah,
Um, at the same time, I've also sort of maintained, the odd PT client and things like that, as you
yep,
do,
yep.
because it's a big passion of mine.
Mm.
Um, Fairly recently, my wife actually passed away with breast cancer.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear.
So, so at the start of the year, I felt I just sort of need to spend a bit more time with my kids. So
Yeah,
my daughter is 7, my son is 5. So they grow up so quickly.
yeah.
So essentially sort of told my boss I was sort of going to step aside from the rugby.
Mm.
Um, I've always had sort of a passion or desire to maybe do something in the men's health space,
Yeah.
and that's actually been the driver for this Arron Callaghan coaching. So really looking a very holistic approach to sort of men's coaching,
Mm.
and um, like it's a learning, it's a journey for me, just like everything else.
Oh, yeah.
So it was actually my wife's birthday where I did my first post. So just as a little bit of an insight with myself personally,
Mm.
um, I'm probably a bit more sort of sit on the fence, procrastinate.
Yep.
Probably a little bit of fear sitting there as well.
Yep.
And I had a really special day for kids. We'd sort of looked at some videos and
Mm.
pictures and things like that. We'd made
Mm.
birthday cards.
Mm.
But my wife, who was actually sort of also in the health wellbeing space, she was dietitian, but very holistic. Like her book was holistic, called Holistic Nutrition.
Yeah.
But she was very good at getting shit done.
Right.
So I was sitting inside. So okay, so how can I honor Kate?
Yeah.
So basically, very spur of the moment, I went out to sort of the office and made this clip and posted it.
Mm.
And
Mm.
the funny thing is, like I had one of Kate's good friends, sort of message saying, "Oh, Kate would be very proud." And the thing I really liked about that post is you didn't even care that you sort of cut off half your head.
Sorry.
Oh shit, shit, so
Looking
again,
back.
technology is not my strong point.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I had a look on Instagram. Yep, sure enough, half the head, looked all right on my phone, but so good learning lesson for me.
Yep.
But yeah, so to get back to your original question, like I think going forward, the plan is to do some sort of one-on-one coaching online.
Mm. Mm.
Um, Also to run some retreats, sort of primarily sort of focused on the men. I
Right.
live in Central Otago in Lake Hawea.
Yep.
So I think the environment really sort of lends
Mm.
itself nicely for that sort of thing. And that might be men, or it might be sort of father and son sort of gatherings as well.
Yep. Yep.
And then also some sort of corporate talk speaking as well
Right.
is what I think the
Yeah.
business might look like at this stage.
Mm.
But I'm
Mm.
sure you'd agree, Richard. Like as we know, maybe that vision we have at the start, and where things end up, quite often two very different things. Like I had a facility when I was in Sydney, and again, like I know, the vision I had at the start and where we sort of ended up, was,
Yeah.
it's evolution, isn't it?
It
Like
is.
if
Yeah.
you're not evolving, it's probably a bad sign, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. Tis an evolution, and it does change as time goes on. I'm loving those posts. Now, I admit I haven't seen all of them. I've probably watched a handful of them, and it seems like you've kind of got this good routine now. Where is it a daily thing? And you're obviously in the space where you are now, because I recognize your background, and you talk to camera for, a couple of minutes, and some real pearls of wisdom there, bits that people kind of go, oh, I didn't know that, or I knew that, but I wasn't doing it. And it's quite inspiring. It's is it a daily thing, or I'm not sure how often they come out?
Yeah, but basically, sort of Monday to Friday,
Yeah,
and um, I suppose a lot of the rationale is, like at the end of the day, we're time poor.
yeah,
So I try and try and keep the clips sort of nice and short and sharp. And a lot of the time, it's not about hey, look, here's the solution.
mm,
It's just about sort of trying to spark a conversation.
mm,
Because again, I think in sort of health and well-being, um, everything is just so nuanced. It needs to be individualized. So at least let's just sort of start a discussion. That might be, something around, as a man, how can I be a better partner?
mm.
So what are some of the things? Yeah, as well as just, obviously, then you've got, you say, maybe your exercise and nutrition, and
Yeah,
what does it mean to be a boy in this world?
mm, mm,
There's a lot of talk around sort of that sort of
mm.
toxic masculinity. What is the
Yes,
significance of that?
yes,
If I'm a teenage boy and I'm growing up, yes, I
absolutely.
haven't got the answers, but at least let's start a discussion around it.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I think there is value in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's great, and I mean, obviously, social media helps get your name out there, and people can, I guess, consume the bits and pieces that you put out there. But it's, I guess, it's helping sort of inform people and jog their memories, and like you say, it starts a conversation which they may have in their own head to start with, but they may not have otherwise had. So there's some real value to be had with those sorts of posts. Where did it all start? So you've got the coaching thing going now, and that gives you the, I guess, the time and the lifestyle that you're looking for now. Um, how did you get into the industry? I know you've got a rugby background, but there's obviously a whole heap of other things that you've done.
Uh, it's a good question, Richard. So I feel very fortunate. I don't want to make this too long-winded and things like that, but
That's all right.
like if I look back at myself, say 12 or 13 years of age, I was very lucky that, well, maybe not so lucky, but I had a knee injury. This is when I was living in Christchurch. I
Yeah.
went to this physiotherapist who was a very good sports physio.
Right.
And so, he used to physio for the Kiwi Rugby League team and things like that. Used to travel across to America regularly, to upskill and things like that.
Mm, mm.
Um, so for whatever reason, we sort of sparked up a bit of a relationship and things like that. So he used to ask me to come around and do odd jobs around his house, so gardening and things like that.
Okay.
But I would go into his office and actually just read his books, which, and for some reason he still paid me and things like that. But
Yeah. Yeah.
he'd get home going, well, you know, don't see much of the garden done, but and then, oh, can I borrow these books,
Yeah.
JD? Blah blah blah.
Okay.
So he yeah, as I say, like, great mentor and still a
Mm,
great friend. So that was probably sort of the catalyst,
right.
and again, you sort of mentioned my rugby.
Mm,
One of the things I always enjoyed about rugby was training. So how can I try and maximize my own performance?
yeah.
So
Yeah.
got into things really early, was like, maybe doing, sled drags and things like that for your sprinting, and
Mm, mm.
power cleans and stuff in the gym, as opposed to maybe just machines, which was a bit more common, say, in the 90s and stuff like that. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so yeah, look, I was lucky that I sort of got exposed to some of these sort of different training modalities, which again, once I started coming back into more of the PT realm, I always felt it was one of my big advantages, because I tried a lot of different things from a training point of view.
Mm,
So you've
mm.
experienced it, you've felt it. So therefore, you have a little bit of empathy potentially, when you're working with people and things, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that
Absolutely.
was sort of, yeah, from there, then I sort of progressed. I went to Otago University. I was
Oh,
at
yeah.
phys ed school,
Hmm.
which again was a great, period in my life. Lots of lots of rugby and drinking and all that sort of stuff.
Thought
And
that was coming.
yeah, yeah, and fun, yeah. And I'll try and be honest. I'm trying to be honest.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then snuck in a little bit of study and things like that at the same time. Again,
Sure.
when I was actually at university, like I was lucky enough to work for a company who actually started to bring in like all the speed ladders and overspeed bungees and sleds and things like that.
Yeah.
Um, and that sort of looked like going and running or helping facilitate sort of speed camps and things like that. Quickness,
Yeah.
speed,
Yeah.
agility, quickness sort of stuff. So this was
Mm.
sort of, mid 90s.
Okay.
So really sort of at that stage, they were cutting edge, and through that, I actually got to meet the guy Randy Smythe, who was the speed consultant for the Dallas Cowboys at the
Right.
time.
Yep.
So you're sort of sitting
Mm.
there, and Randy's talking about his experience and some of the athletes that he's worked with, and just like as a young person, just absolutely blows you away
Yeah.
and inspirational. You
Mm.
know,
Mm.
um, so that was sort of the start, and
Okay.
then from there had the opportunity to go to England with rugby,
Yep.
and then ended up sort of doing a bit of a dual role actually because of my passion sort of in the Eastern Sea side. Like I
Mm.
also started as well as playing, then I was sort of supporting the Eastern Sea for other players and things like that as well.
Yeah. Right.
Um, which again was a great opportunity to start to apply maybe some of these things that you'd looked at over a bigger group and see how various individuals might
Mm. Mm.
respond differently. Which,
Yep.
as we know, is a good it's a good lesson from a training point of view and things like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then then from there, I ended up in Sydney, so that's sort of
Okay. Yeah.
2003.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I really sort of made that transition from maybe being in that sporting environment into more the PT environment.
Yeah. Right.
Um, I actually sort of got asked when I got to Sydney if I would be interested in putting my CV in at the Waratahs, which is their professional team and things like that. But I just
Mm. Mm.
at that stage, like I was a bit done with rugby,
Okay.
and like it's interesting. Like I think there's pros and cons of both environments. But he's definitely very something pretty special. Going to work and maybe working with say an 80-year-old,
Mm. Mm.
and you got the full spectrum of um, skill levels, fitness levels,
Yes.
mindsets, etc.,
Yes.
etc.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
so that's sort of that's the early years. That's the early
Okay.
years.
Okay. And was that in a gym environment? What sort of environment were you seeing those clients?
Yeah, when I first started in Sydney, I was very lucky. I ended up in a gym. It was just called Number One, so it was a Number One Martin Place. So it was sort of right in the middle of the CBD.
Right.
Macquarie Bank
Yeah.
was in the same building.
Okay.
Um, so again, you're sort of looking very sort of corporate
Mm.
environment and things like that. Like the,
Yep.
the gym itself was branded a bit more sort of high end and things.
Yep.
Um, and yeah, with that as comes its challenges and
Sure.
things like that as well, and
Yeah.
learning opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
quite a big group of PTs. But then within the gym itself, I think, relative to other gyms in Australia and things like that, the actual amount of PT that was happening percentage wise was really high as well.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, we actually there's a guy, Alan Bailey, he was actually at Otago Uni as well. Like he was sort of managing all the PTs and things, and he
Mm.
was yeah, put together a really good team and sort of created that culture within the gym around um, the benefits of PT and things like
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
then yeah, like really nice environment to work in, and
Mm.
um, yeah, as I said, lots of very good trainers in there and things like that as well.
Yeah. 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 I
Um,
had a catch up with, or I did an episode with Leanne Wan whose name you might recognise. She reasonably well known in the New Zealand fitness scene. She was in Sydney, I think, around the same sort of time. And I remember she said she was also in a very corporate-y environment, but busy. It was where it sort of that whole PT thing was really kicking in, and that the number of sessions, the number of clients, it was busy for her. And sounds like you may have been there at a similar sort of time, but and it's very similar story in terms of that corporate feel for the clients that you were working with.
It Yeah, look, like as you know, you sort of touched on there with regards to um, potential workload and things like that.
Mm.
So it wouldn't be uncommon to maybe do say 50 sessions in a week and stuff like that.
Crikey. Wow.
And so it's a lot of hammer
Yeah.
on you,
Yeah.
a lot of hammer on your body. You've got to sort of
Mm.
learn how to sort of manage
Mm.
to get through your week and things like that. And I'd I read somewhere that in general, females will say twice as many words in a day than what males do.
Right.
So what I would find by the time I got to the end of my week, and this is what I, had this discussion with Kate and things like that. Says,
Yeah.
like, honey, I've I've done a lot of talking. I'm cut,
I'm
so
done.
this is, yeah. Friday night would typically be recovery night and not
Yeah.
not too many words and stuff like that.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
But again, like with that sort of high volume of sessions over a
Mm.
long period of time and things like that, it gives you a tremendous opportunity from a learning point of view. You just really
Mm.
accelerate.
Of
Because you're
course.
seeing so many different bodies,
Mm. Mm.
physically, mental, emotionally, and then so it's a great way to really get better.
Yeah.
Potentially,
Yeah.
if you actually go
If
through
you,
that process, you reflect, you want to
yeah.
get better, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, yeah.
you
It's
know.
it's like servicing cars, isn't it? You can still be a rubbish mechanic if you service hundreds of cars a week, but it's about putting what you've learned into practice and becoming better, isn't it? So
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. If you want to. So was it from Sydney you then shifted back to New Zealand? Was there anything in between there?
I actually, yeah, so that's sort of 2003, 2009, 10, which was quite interesting timing, because this is sort of like the global financial crisis.
Mm. Oh yeah.
Set up a studio.
Okay.
And again, it was sort of quite, so sort of boutique sort of studio and things like that.
Mm. Mm.
And we had trainers working in there and things.
Yep.
At this stage, yeah, like I felt we are sort of on the cutting edge, so it was still, there was no machines in there. It was, very sort of movement orientated. We had a bit of grass put down as a
Mm.
track and stuff like that. And
Mm.
before before I opened it, I actually went over to the States and did like a business mentorship with Alan Cosgrove,
Yeah.
which which was awesome.
Mm. Mm.
But then got back to Sydney and realized like the numbers that he was sort of working off and what we were working off, just with regards to the ratios around, what you could maybe charge and rent and things like that.
Yeah.
All of a sudden they all out the window.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, actually, as I say, like the mentorship, the networking stuff like that was a fantastic opportunity.
Mm.
But as I say, like it was just a good learning lesson for me, was that okay, when it comes down to the nuts and bolts numbers, what does it look like? What
Mm.
he was doing and what we were going to do, going to have to be sort of two different things.
Sure. Sure.
So within the studio and things like that, we generally sort of coach, maybe two or three clients at once.
Yeah.
Everyone will still be on individualized programs.
Yeah.
But again, like it's a good challenge coaching wise, I would say.
Mm. Mm.
Like if you're really your clients are paying a premium price, well then it should be a premium service, things like that. So
Yeah.
to really be on top of your game, and everyone is sort of getting that high quality service.
Yeah.
If you've got two or three people, it is challenging environment. Well, good. Keep you on your toes.
Yeah. That's it. And you don't want to be waiting for equipment and all those sorts of things, don't you? You want to be able to sort of harmonize in that space with everybody at the same time.
Yeah, I suppose that that is one of the advantages of if it is your own facility.
Mm.
The way you sort of set up your programming and things like that, and the actual the layout of the facility. You can ensure that there is that sort of nice flow and stuff like that as well.
Yeah.
It's a big,
Yeah. Yeah.
big,
Yeah.
big piece of it.
Yeah. So from there, how long did you do the studio thing?
5 years.
Right.
Yes, and it was actually so my wife is Australian.
Mm.
Um, the reason we came back to New Zealand was actually we'd sort of been struggling for a couple of years to fall pregnant.
Okay.
And everyone that we spoke to, whether it was sort of, say, more traditional medical model or more holistic, it
Mm.
all sort of came back to sort of reducing a bit of stress.
Sure. Right.
Um, yeah, so she'd gone back to university to study her dietetics
Yeah.
degree. Plus,
Yeah.
plus she was working,
Right.
um, super lean, blah blah blah, all these sort of
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so there's lots of factors in there. And it was actually, so by this stage, like I'd been away sort of from New Zealand maybe 15 years. It was actually
Mm.
Kate who said, "Oh, should we go to New Zealand?"
Mm.
And it's pretty amazing, really. Like as much as we think we know about the human body, it's just just the
Yeah.
tip of the iceberg,
Yeah. Yeah.
So we left Sydney. We weren't really too sure what we're going to do for work, where we're going to live. Basically, like our two things that we sort of spoke about was, we wanted to be surrounded by nature and be part of a small community.
Right.
And so that's sort of, we got back, we did a couple of weeks sort of tiki tours around and stuff like that. And
Mm.
that's sort of how we ended up in Central.
Mm.
And within a week of being here, Kate started to notice like a positive change for her temperature, which she'd been sort of
Right.
tracking for a couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when we're in Sydney, we were in Double Bay, which is very eastern suburbs. We're in an apartment,
Mm.
busy street, etc., etc.
Mm. Mm.
When we got set up in Wanaka, we'd open our curtains and you'd see the lake and the mountains and stuff like that. You just feel it relax your
Yeah.
soul.
Quite different. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and as I say, so that sort of started to drive a positive change, and it
Yeah.
was sort of, I think we've been here about 10 months, and then Kate, sort of rang and said, "You're not going to believe it, but I'm pregnant."
Uh,
And this
yeah.
is after being told by a specialist in Sydney, that there's no way that she'd fall pregnant naturally.
Hmm.
Yeah. So that was sort of
Mm.
how we transitioned and things like that to New Zealand.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The,
Fantastic.
yeah.
I see you've done quite a lot of work with Dwyer, and the bits I've been able to see, some workshops that you've been involved in, and an E3. I noticed the E3 T-shirt.
Yeah.
Can you fill in some gaps around that for me?
Yeah. Well, look, I feel very, very grateful for my time in Australia. So
Mm.
I think, with Australia's population just being that little bit bigger,
Mm.
and maybe even being a little bit sort of closer to the rest of the world, a lot of the top presenters from around the world would come and do workshops and things like that
Oh,
in Australia that we don't always get in New Zealand. It's been
no.
like this. So I was lucky enough to spend a lot of time with OD.
Right.
You know, when I first started PT, like one of my influences, I suppose, was Gary Gray.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is sort of right back at the start. So
Yes.
it used to cost me 90 Australian dollars per one DVD.
Oh, crikey. And there's loads, aren't there?
Yeah, like this, like
Yeah.
so one year I actually spent the most globally on resource and stuff like that on PTA Global.
Yeah.
Sorry, PT on the net.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And for that, I got a free prize. I got to pick a
Esther.
conference in anywhere around the world. Yeah. So
Right.
anyway,
Wow. Yeah.
so
Fantastic.
yeah, like I was very passionate, Gary Gray, blah blah. And
Yep.
then from there, then I yeah, I heard about this guy that's doing stuff maybe that looks sort of similar, more sort of
Mm.
functional, movement based, blah blah. And
Yep.
that was OD. So I rang
Okay.
OD up and I said, look, I'm a I'm a young guy in Sydney. Would it
Yep.
be all right if I just came up and
Mm.
spend some time in your studios? So from there we, had this great started a friendship and things like that.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
like as you know, like OD is just such
Mm.
a great man. He's very
Yeah. Yeah.
welcoming and things. And then through OD, like he was involved with PTA Global
Yeah.
and like one of the original sort of founders. So there, you
Mm.
had the likes of Bobby Capuccio, Rodney
Yeah.
Corn,
Yep.
Hopper, Michelle Dolcourt, like
Mm.
all these big names.
Mm.
So then I sort of got involved with that as well. Um,
Yeah.
so I was lucky enough to spend a lot of time with these guys and then sort of
Mm.
help, facilitate, some of their courses and things like
Yep.
that over time and, through Michelle, do some work with Viper and
Yeah. Yeah.
just a bit
Okay.
of stuff with sort of techno gym and things like that as well. So
Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
and say like I was very, very, very fortunate.
Mm.
Um, and then you still, you'd have people like say Nick Winkelman or Mike Robertson, um, Tom Myers and things like that, sort of
Mm.
coming to Australia fairly regularly as well.
Mm.
Paul Check obviously.
Yeah.
So from a continuing education point of view,
Mm. Mm.
like it was almost there on your back doorstep. I think
Sure.
it's and like in saying that, obviously now, with with technology and things like that as well, all that information is just so accessible now, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I look at say the Gary Gray stuff as an example. I think you can get the whole series for about $200 or something like that.
Damn.
But
Yeah.
yeah, which is a fantastic thing. So
Mm.
for myself personally, like one of the because I've been involved in coaching for a long time. One of the things that keeps it exciting for me is learning new stuff
Yes.
and then going to apply it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
that's not to say that all the old stuff that you used to use doesn't work.
Mm.
It's, let's build your toolbox, isn't it?
Exactly. Exactly. So
Yeah.
what sort of avenues interested you when you were sort of focusing more in on the coaching stuff to give you more tools for that toolbox?
Um, it's a good question. Like, so I suppose from a movement side, I've already sort of touched on it. The Gary Gray was a huge influence at the start.
Yep.
Then from there, FMS.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Yes.
I sort of did the sort of level 1 and 2 and things like that, the
Mm.
FMS, which I
Mm.
sort of felt. We built a lot of that, I suppose, the philosophy in the studio and things like that around, we'd sort of do screening and that would sort of
Yeah.
drive a lot of our programming things.
Yeah. Yeah.
More recently, looking at, a bit more sort of like your Postural Restoration Institute, your Bill Hartman sort of stuff, a lot more sort of breathing mechanics.
Right.
That's, I suppose, from a movement side.
Mm. Mm.
Um, but I'd say probably one of the biggest changes over time is, the realization that it all just comes back to relationships.
Mm. Mm.
So yeah, it's great if you know 20 different bicep curl variations, but if there's not that connection,
Totally.
so people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a brilliant.
And
Mm.
so this is a bit embarrassing. So I would probably say, for the first 2 years when I was PTing in Sydney, as you know, the majority of clients are going to be, I want to lose weight and tone.
Yeah.
I didn't open a bloody nutrition book for maybe 2 years. So I was all about that's my bias. I was all about the
Yeah.
exercise.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, okay, so then I started to sort of delve into this sort of stuff. And then from there, then it's a bit more sort of around the mindset.
Mm,
Oh, and
mm,
then there's all this other stuff around, actually coaching behavioral change.
yeah.
Because again, for myself, like, look, we're doing all this great training. I've told, we've discussed what maybe good nutrition might look like, but then we're not actually seeing change. So
Mm,
why are things breaking down?
yeah.
Oh, actually, well, then there's this whole sort of field around, coaching of behavioral change and things like that. And that's,
Yeah.
I would say traditionally maybe sort of in that, fitness, nutrition space, we don't always do that well.
No,
You
agreed.
know, so that was probably sort of the big sort of evolution,
Yeah.
and again, probably more recently, some of that sort of goal setting piece, trying to attach it more to, what are your values, what's your why behind it, and things like that. So again, you're starting to build a picture
Mm,
that, a bit of scaffolding, so you can do some of your behavioral change sort of interventions and things like that.
yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Is yeah,
does that
stuff.
sort of answer your question?
Yeah, yeah, it does. I think sorry, so the follow-up to that is there some specific stuff around that psychology and that behavioral change stuff that you've looked at for the coaching that you're doing online? Is
Uh, yeah. So what? So it's a great question. So with regards to, um, there's a couple of bits. So like, I think you always want to sort of build on success.
mm, mm,
So what success looks like for me might be very, very different for yourself,
yeah.
depending on where we're at along that sort of continuum with regards to how ready are we to change.
Mm, mm,
So this is an interesting piece, and I don't have any science to back this up, but
yeah,
just
yeah,
in
yeah.
my experience,
Yeah.
males that are at rock bottom, they can change everything at once
Right.
and be successful.
Okay.
Some people,
Mm,
some
mm, mm.
males. Whereas typically what I'd say is, you're far better to break it up into small chunks, building on success, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know why that is, but as I said, like I've experienced, like particularly when I was in Sydney and things like that, I was working with a lot of A-type personalities.
Mm,
Like a lot of foreign exchange traders, super super successful.
mm.
Well, depending on how we define success,
Yeah. Yeah.
so we might say sort of financially successful,
Yeah.
and you could see them applying, goal setting, being very driven in one aspect of their life,
Mm,
but then maybe on their sort of health well-being side, it's a
mm.
bloody train wreck.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So one of the challenges for me was like, okay, so look, I can see you can do it here. Why is it not here?
Yeah.
And then then you start to look at all this sort of stuff with regards to, look, if I'm putting all my energy in this basket, well, the reality is I've got bugger all left in the tank over here, and vice
Mm,
versa. It's a
mm,
very common sort of
mm.
trait that you will see, like an exceptional performance. In their one thing they are exceptional, but everything around them
Yes.
is a bloody disaster.
Yeah. Yeah.
So so understanding the individual where they're at, um, and then letting them drive the
Mm,
choices.
mm, mm. Yeah.
So what can we be successful at? And like, I want you to be sort of 9 out of 10 confident that you can do it for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing is, to go back to your original question, um, we could sit here and have a pretty good discussion with regards to technology and maybe some of the detrimental effects it's had on our health and well-being.
Yeah.
But then potentially technology could also be one of the things that might help us
Mm,
take us out the other side.
mm,
So
mm.
with regards to your original question with regards to online coaching, what does that look like? So I'm using like an app which you can send all your programs to and things like that as
Oh
well.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's also a really good platform for a lot of your behavioral change coaching as well. So
Right.
you might have little prompts maybe
Mm,
2 or 3 times during the day. Maybe that's linked in with, might be a nutritional maybe we're trying to focus on upping our protein at breakfast or something like that. So you might
Yeah.
have a prompt that comes through. So the feedback that I've had from clients has actually been really, really positive about that. Because again, like
Right.
it's a massive learning lesson for me.
Yeah.
That they actually, actually, I get these prompts and it feels like, because
Mm.
like at the end of the day, we might see our clients 1 or 2 hours a week. There's a lot of bloody time
Yeah.
for things
True.
to fall apart, when we're
Yeah.
not there. But they're just these little prompts and things like that. So I think that's a
Mm.
really
Mm.
interesting piece that, how can we, utilize technology to maybe try and, see some positive change and things like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. It's important to use those tools to I guess help speed the outcome up, or provide that extra accountability along the way, so that
yeah,
it helps between face to faces.
yep, yeah. Nestle is
Mm.
really
Mm.
nicely summed up actually. Yeah.
Mm.
A lot more
And
simple
so
than what I
is
said.
is that is it does can you kind of manage other things in there as well? So do you so you can record sessions that you've had, and take payments, and is there other stuff in there, or is it more about sort of the coaching?
Um, Yeah, no, you can do payments. You can have them log all their food on there
Mm.
as well. Obviously, you've got sort of the exercise component, and then you've sort of got
Okay.
that mindset piece as well. And then it's also, you can feed through articles and things like that as well.
Yeah.
So maybe information as
Yeah.
well. So maybe someone's
Awesome.
asked specifically with regards to maybe some nutrition ideas and things like that. So
Mm. Mm.
upload research articles, etc., etc. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it's a pretty
That's
good platform actually.
mm. Mm.
One
So is that something you've created yourself, or is it something that you can get off the shelf that you've been able to then customize?
uh, off the shelf, and
Okay.
then yeah, and then you can put your own branding with it and stuff like that as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah. Do you
Because
mind
again,
sharing?
what's that? Sorry.
Do you mind sharing what it
Yeah,
is?
no, not at all. So I've been using the Everfit
Yeah.
app, and yeah, as I say, when I was first sort of setting up things, sort of went through and had a look at, I think there's quite a few sort of Train Aerobic, Trainer Eyes, a few
Yes.
others.
Yeah.
I felt Everfit had the best platform for coaching that behavioural change.
Yeah.
And that was sort of the decider for me really, because
Mm,
as we
mm,
sort of touched on before, I think that's just such a massive piece.
yeah.
Yeah, yes, we want the face to face. So that might look like, we sort of catch up each week, go through, set some specific, say, goals, as well as some obstacles, and then some
Mm,
solutions around the obstacles as
mm,
well. Because
mm,
again, in that moment when things don't work how they're supposed to, like I think if you've already got things in place, well,
mm.
then your chances of actually sticking to the plan is a hell of a lot higher.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we just tend to
Absolutely.
go back into our old patterns. Less
Absolutely.
energy, it's easy, boom, that's what I know.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had that same experience this week, actually. Someone who was supposed to see me twice has ended up only seeing me once. And the reasons were fairly typical life things, and if you don't consider those obstacles, which we need to revisit, they just get in the way, and they just slow your progress. And foreseeing that, I guess going through that process, because it's set out in the app, is a good exercise for planning for success before things do become a thing, an obstacle, or a slowdown.
Yeah, yeah, no,
Mm.
definitely,
That's
definitely.
good. I might have to check that one out, Aaron, and put it in my collection of things to recommend or even use, because it sounds like you've got some good functionality in there, and it's obviously working for you and your clients. Final tips. I know you've dropped a few good ones in here, like they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Are there some other things that have worked for you over the years that you said, and the other thing I guess that stood out for me is, relationships. Regardless of the content and the subject matter, it's all about relationships, and those are good gems. But other things that sort of may have been good learnings for you over the years, or things that have just worked and you've kept doing them.
Uh, you've put me on the spot now.
No
What mistakes? What mistake?
pressure. No
what
pressure.
mistakes have I made over the years? I've made many. Um,
It's all good learning, though, isn't it?
potential
There's
learning.
that thing again. Yeah, you've got to actually do something with like the mechanic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, look, I think, and this won't come as a surprise to many people that sort of on this call and things like that.
Mm,
Like at the end of the day, you're from a PT point of view, the quality of your session is going to be very much dictated by the quality of how you turn up.
mm, mm,
So we sort of touched on it right at the start, of what life can look like as a PT. Look, I think, um, often when we go through our study and things like that, you go, well, I'm going to be doing 25 hours a week of coaching, and then I've got all this time for everything else.
mm,
But then you realize, oh, actually, those 25 sessions are going to be at the start of your day and the end of the day.
mm,
And before you know it, your weeks, your workload is pretty massive.
mm,
So and this can be challenging, like from a PT point of view, like when you're first starting, you think about your scheduling. Like at the start, you just whatever clients, whenever they
yeah.
want to train. Yep,
Yeah.
I'll be up at 5. I'll do it. Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
8 o'clock that night as well. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
If you might have to do that at the start, but as I say, like if you have a bit of an idea of what you would like your daily schedule to look like, start there, because it's bloody
Mm,
hard to turn it back.
mm, mm.
So
Good.
I'm gonna like I'm a morning person, so maybe yep, you're gonna do your morning sessions, but then you're gonna sort of finish it till whatever it is in the afternoon. Not get sort of dragged into,
Yeah.
because the tough thing is, like, generally people that get into this sort of industry, like, they're people that really want to help other
Mm,
people.
mm,
So therefore, quite often you will sacrifice your own
mm.
maybe health, well-being to 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 help someone else, and that might look
Yeah.
like, shit. This is my only night free, but John wants to train, so yeah, I'm going to go out and train at 7 o'clock. So
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
you really need to sort of look after number one,
Agreed.
um, which is not always easy. As I say, like, particularly if you've got that mindset that you really want to
Mm,
help people and things like
mm,
that.
mm. Yeah.
So that'd be a big one
It's
for
a biggie.
me
Yeah.
with regards to when I had the studio and things. Again, I suppose you sort of go in. The vision is that maybe you'll be able to sort of pull back from the training a little bit and sort of focus a little bit more on the business side of it. Um, my experience was that, like, if you have those relationships with clients and things like that, it's very hard to transition
Mm,
to another coach coming in and things like that.
mm,
Sort of
mm.
take over and stuff. So that was just, so like that was a good learning lesson for me from a business point of view. So therefore, then you're doing all the coaching plus all the business work as well. The business side of it as well. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
so as I say, so that was a big good learning
Good.
lesson for me. Yeah,
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
regards to that sort of being in a business side of it.
Yeah.
And again, like, as you've got to make sure all your numbers and stuff like that look
Mm,
good, and you've
mm.
got enough sort of fat in the system to actually warrant all the extra stress of being a business owner.
Yeah. Yeah.
Particularly like if you've got enough, if you've got other people working for you and things like that.
Mm, mm.
Because your employees, that they'll be your biggest joy. When you see that development and see it all
Mm,
working, but then
mm,
potentially
mm.
can be your biggest stressor as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I might be sort of in this contracting sort of model, where I'm working in a gym, I'm making X amount of money. Am I going to be, 1.5, 2 times better if I was to set up a studio?
Mm,
Because
mm.
you've got all this other stuff, and
Yeah.
I don't know, or like I definitely didn't factor that much in when I made that transition.
Okay. Okay. That's interesting, and it's yeah, it's so true, isn't it? It needs to be worth its while to make that transition to take that step.
Yeah.
And knowing your numbers is such a critical part of that. Yeah, I
Well,
like
yeah,
it.
because like for I speak about myself personally, but then also, what I've seen, talking with lots of trainers over the years, is that numbers is not always our passion.
No, no,
We're about,
yeah,
um, the exercise and things like that, and helping people.
mm, yeah,
But then so to come in and to run your own business, well, then you need to get bloody good at the numbers and actually, understand that there's lots of other stuff that happens within a business as well. So you're not just that person on the floor.
mm,
Actually, you're doing all the scheduling, you're doing all the marketing, all that sort of stuff that goes
mm,
in
mm.
the background. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's a lot to juggle, isn't there? That's what it boils down
yeah,
to. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I think those are really good. I've been scribbling while you've been talking, so that's why I've been taking my eye off the camera. So I really appreciate it because there's some great things in there, and it's nice to hear it from someone else who's been through it and can share the wisdom. So it's greatly appreciated, as is your time today, Aaron. I really want to thank you for your vulnerability and your wisdom because it's been fascinating sort of learning and catching up with you and getting it recorded so that hopefully others can share in it. Where can people find you, Aaron? I know you're on Instagram and Aaron Callaghan Coaching, I think, is your
yep,
handle. Is that right? Yep.
yep. That's
Awesome.
it. That's
Okay.
probably that's probably the best spot, and then
Okay.
the website to come and things like that. Like,
Sure. Sure.
thank you for the opportunity. I hope it might be helpful for someone. I felt there's a lot of rambling in there and stuff like that, but
No, no, all
hopefully,
good. No, it's been good.
awesome.
Been good. Thank you. And yeah, take care and maybe catch up for a second one at some point in the future.
Sounds fantastic. Awesome.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Richard.
See
See you,
ya.
mate.
Bye.